Hey, I'm Gareth from Puck Cameras, and we've been checking out the Canon 85mm f1.4 L lens, and whew, this thing is awesome. So to get straight into it, this thing is packing a maximum aperture of f1.4 and then all the way down to f22. It's got a 9-bladed aperture, it's got image stabilization, sort of close focusing distance of 85 centimeters, and it's a Canon L lens, so you know it's going to be fantastic in terms of build quality and design. It's just going to be fantastic. So let's unpack some of that and talk about how it performs in terms of photography. We'll talk about how it does for video in a little bit. So it's an 85mm focal length, and combine that with the 1.4 aperture, you can get some outstanding shots when it comes to things like bokeh, autofocus elements. Oh, it just looks so good. So the bokeh is super smooth, it's delicious looking, it's really nice. But that 1.4 aperture also means you can get some really nice shots even when the sun's gone, the light started to fade. If you're shooting indoors and you don't have such great light, you can still get some really nice shots. But the main thing about that 1.4 aperture is the bokeh, and that's what we're all here for. We want to see how it performs. Well, the bokeh is delicious. It's very smooth, it looks great, the photos look fantastic, and it allows you to do that thing that I love doing where you have a foreground element completely out of focus, your subject, and then the background completely blurred out as well. And that allows you to get a bit of depth to the photo, something to frame your subject, but your subject just pops out of the frame and that looks so good every time. On top of that, the lens has got image stabilization, which I will never turn down in a lens. It just really helps, and in this case, in terms of photography, it just helps even more shooting in lower light conditions. So that means you can have slightly slower shutter speed without worrying so much about camera shake. And that just means, again, you don't have to rely so much on ISO if you're shooting in darker conditions. As I mentioned before, the minimum focus distance on this lens is 85 centimeters. That means you can get in actually fairly close to your subject, which is nice. You can get some close-up shots, you can pull back, and it's just great to have that kind of slight versatility there. Now, obviously this is designed as a portrait lens and it's going to be great for that kind of thing, but something I love doing with lenses like this is trying out other kinds of photography. So actually, this is a great lens for landscape photography. Obviously it's not going to be that wide, expansive shot that you might get with something like a 24mm, obviously, but you can still get some really nice shots using an 85mm like this. And because it's such a nice lens, because the image quality is so great, you're going to end up with some really nice shots. You can also obviously use it for things like food photography, product photography, which is actually really well suited to in the same way that it is for portrait. Now, all of that is true as well when you're shooting video. So 85mm is one of my favorite focal lengths to shoot video with. It just gives you a really nice look to things. It gives you nice cinematic shots. You can get that nice B-roll. So I love shooting all my B-roll around that focal length if I can. I know a lot of videographers like to shoot wider, like 24, 35, and I love that as well, but I really love using 85. There's just something about the way it looks. It just looks fantastic. Now, everything I said about photography is also true here, so you can still get that lovely blurred background. The bokeh still looks, oh, so good. It's still a really nice cinematic look because of that. You can still have the foreground out of focus, the background, have the subject pop out of the frame, and be able to give it depth. And oh, the image stabilization, oh, for video, it's so good. So if you don't have a gimbal, if you don't have a stabilizer, you can still shoot handheld without too much trouble because of the image stabilization. So all of the footage in this video was shot handheld, and I'm really happy with how smooth it is. I'm really happy with how it came out. And that's partly because of the image stabilization. It just really helps when you're shooting video. It's a decent size, it's not too heavy. That said, it does have some weight to it, but personally I like that. I like to be able to feel the weight of the lens I'm using. You can feel the quality in there, and also it just helps to kind of stabilize the system as well. By no means is it too heavy at all, obviously that's personal preference, but it does feel really good in the hands. Everything on it is well designed, it feels good to use, as you would expect from it being a Canon L lens. So the autofocus, it's very fast. It's very good and reliable. So on the older 85mm 1.2 L lens, it was a little bit slower. That was kind of the only thing that wasn't so great, was the autofocus was a bit slower. And that's, I think, partially because it was such a big piece of glass. The motors were just working extra hard to actually move anything. But on this, it's really fast. I had no issues. It's very reliable as well. You don't get hunting back and forth looking for what it's supposed to be focusing on. It just seems to zap in, done, and it's really, really useful to have that in a lens, for photography or for video, to be honest. So who is this lens for? Well, if you shoot weddings, if you shoot events, if you shoot portraits, this is perfect, absolutely perfect. That 1.4 aperture means that if you're shooting in somewhere where you can't control the light, so in a wedding, for example, if you can't put up a massive strobe and just flash everyone, which obviously you can't, then it's perfect because you're going to be able to control your aperture and let more light in that way, which means that even if it is a bit darker, you're not going to have too much trouble there. You can also get that awesome depth of field look, so if you're shooting weddings, events, portraits, stuff like that, it's perfect for that kind of thing because you can use that depth of field to create a really nice creative shot. And 85mm means you don't have to get right up into your subject's face, which is always handy because you sometimes want to be a bit more discreet. This is just one of those lenses that's just very exciting to buy and get home because it just immediately, the stuff you get out of it is going to look so good. So that's partly because of the 1.4 aperture, but 85mm, image stabilization. Also, the image quality is just so good. It's so sharp, everything out of this lens, that it's just immediately going to look great out of camera, photos, videos, and it's so exciting to be able to do that. As you can tell, I loved using this lens. I've been very excited about this lens in particular, but it's so lovely. It lived up to all my expectations. It's definitely one that I want to add to my kit. So I hope you found that all helpful. If you have any questions at all, pop them down in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you like the video, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already. I'll see you in the next video. And as always, thanks for watching.